Hello, my name is Dr. Linda Gorman, and I'm a neuroscientist. Neuroscience is a really big word, but a neuroscientist is just a person who knows a lot about the brain. And I'm here today to talk to you about how you can keep your brain healthy. It's really easy and anyone can do it. I love to talk about brain health because it's spectacular, and spectacular means great. When your brain is spectacular, you're a happy and healthy person. This story is about cognitive health, which is the C in spectacular. Cognitive health is about thinking, and not just when you're in school. Cognitive is a big word that means being able to think. Your brain thinks all the time. That's something that you do inside your head. And it's your brain's job to think, and by thinking, you're making your brain healthy. So let's see how you can keep your brain healthy. This story is titled The World as We Know It. We're constantly learning about the world around us so that we can change our behaviors, allowing us to survive. How you change your behaviors depends on how you perceive the world around you, and that depends on getting information from your sensory systems. We will talk about how what you know about the world around you may be different than you think. When you got up this morning, you may have looked outside to see what the weather was like. We all know that the weather changes during different seasons. Your getting dressed behaviors need to change when the weather is changing in the world. When the weather gets colder, you need to wear more clothes to protect yourself from getting sick. What we know about the world around us depends on information that we get from our sensory systems. We have five senses that we use to get information from the world around us. We can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste, and we can feel things with our skin. Actually, we have a sixth sense. We also have a sense of balance. Now, we need our senses to get information about the world that we live in so that we can survive. Our senses give us information about whether or not something can be eaten or if there's danger around. Our sensory systems have receptors that are designed to respond to certain stimuli or things in the world. In your body, you have different sensory receptors responding to different stimuli. Your eyes have cute little receptors called rods and cones. They respond to light energy. You see light and dark with your rods, and you have three types of cones that let you see color. Your ears have hair cells that respond to different wavelengths of sound, actual movement of air molecules. The air moves faster when there are high squeaky sounds and slower when there are low frequency sounds. We tend to focus on the frequency of people talking. Your nose has bipolar receptors that respond to chemicals that are in the air that actually float up into your nose. This means that chemicals actually go into your nose. That's okay if you're smelling something good like chocolate cookies, but what if you smell dog poop? Yuck. Now, your tongue has taste cells that respond to chemicals from things that you put into your mouth. You have taste cells for salt, sweet, bitter, sour, and umami or meaty tastes. And there's a new taste cell that may exist for fat called oligostus. Now, your skin has ends of nerves, some of which are covered and some that are not. They respond to things that touch your skin. You can tell when something is pulling or stretching your skin, or if something is hard or soft, or if something is hot or cold, or if something's painful. If the stimulus is out there in the world, then your sensory receptors will respond and start sending that information to your brain. Now, all animals need to learn about the world around them, so all animals have sensory receptors. However, the sensory receptors of all animals are not the same. One of the things that's different in the sensory systems of different animals is the type of sensory receptors. The type of sensory receptors that an animal has depends on the type of information about the world that the animal has to pay attention to that's important for the animal. For example, to allow us to see the world, we have rods and cones, sensory receptors for our visual system. These receptors catch different wavelengths of light that are on the electromagnetic spectrum. The rods tell us about light and dark, and the cones tell our brain about colors. The electromagnetic spectrum describes different energy sources that are out there in the world. Our brain converts energy that's in the world into something that our brains can understand. And different kinds of information are transmitted using different wavelengths of light. For example, light energy that you can see is transmitting using wavelengths on a very small part of the electromagnetic spectrum, between 400 and 700 nanometers. There are lots of wavelengths along the electromagnetic spectrum that are invisible to us because we don't have receptors to change the energy into something that we can perceive. Now, different animals see different things based on the types of sensory receptors that they have. We have 3 different types of cones and 1 type of rod, and we can see the entire rainbow that's a mix of red, green, and blue colors. Now, our television sets, they take advantage of this information, and they only use red, green, and blue subpixels to make the colors that we see on TV. Now, dogs, they only have 2 different kinds of cones, so they see the world in shades of blues and yellows. This means that things that are important to dogs staying alive can be seen mixing blue and yellow. Chickens, they have 4 types of cones, so they see more colors in their rainbows. Chickens must lead a very colorful life. We hear some things, waves of electromagnetic energy, and other animals hear other things. But animals hear different things based on the hair cell receptors that they have in their ears. When it comes to hearing, people and chickens are about the same. Humans and chickens hear electromagnetic energy between 20 and 20,000 hertz. A hertz is a cycle of air movement, a wave per second. Now, when it comes to hearing, dogs hear sounds between 40 and 60 hertz. So, yep, when it comes to hearing, dogs rule, and people and chickens, they drool. What things taste like depends on the types and number of taste cells on your tongue. Human and animals are different. Both human and dogs, they have taste receptors for salty, sweet, bitter, sour, and umami, or meaty, and probably fat. However, humans have way more taste receptors. Those are found on the taste buds than dogs do. That's probably why dogs will eat lots of things that humans would not eat at all. Think poop. People can use technology to help their sensory receptors get information about the world around us. We use technology to help our sensory systems when our sensory systems are not working correctly for some reason, like using glasses or contacts to help people see, or using hearing aids to help people hear. People can use technology to get information about the world, even when they don't have the sensory systems to get the information. Different kinds of information are transmitted using different wavelengths or movements of molecules. Light energy that we can see is transmitted using wavelengths between 400 and 700 nanometers. Sounds that we can hear are transmitted using wavelengths between 20 and 20,000 hertz. Other animals hear different sounds. Bats and dogs hear higher wavelengths than we can hear, and elephants, they hear lower wavelengths than we can hear. Now, there are other wavelengths of energy on the electromagnetic spectrum, such as X-rays and radio waves. With our eyes, we cannot see the bones inside our body, but with an X-ray machine, we can. With our ears, we can't catch the radio waves in the air, but with a device like a radio or a smartphone or earbuds, we can hear the radio. We don't have sensory receptors that can catch and translate some of the wavelengths of the electromagnetic energy. If we had sensory receptors that could translate the electromagnetic energy that allows us to see inside our bodies, we'd have X-ray vision. If we had sensory receptors that could translate the electromagnetic energy that allows us to hear the radio waves in the air, we'd have superhuman hearing. If we could see and hear those electromagnetic energy wavelengths, we'd be superheroes. We don't have those sensory receptors in our bodies to translate those wavelengths of energy, and we're not superheroes. But humans are smart, and they go to school and they learn things. So they can build machines that can help us translate energy from the electromagnetic spectrum that our bodies can't. So your sensory systems send your brain information. Then what? Well, your brain puts all that information from your sensory systems together with information about what you've already learned about the world. And then your brain decides what's important at that particular time. And then your brain motivates you to do a behavior. Wow, that's a lot of stuff going on in your brain. And this kind of thing is going on all the time. While your brain is doing all that, there's something else to consider. As all that information from your sensory systems is being put together, there's something else that could change what behavior you do. That something else is your perception of the information. What's perception? Well, perception or perceiving something is you being aware of what's going on in the world from the information you get from your sensory systems. And sorry, but this is always changing too, just like the world around you is always changing. Plus, everyone perceives things differently based on a lot of different things. Let's say that you like chocolate ice cream, but your friend likes vanilla ice cream. To you, chocolate tastes better than vanilla. You know this because you've tried both flavors. So when given a choice, you choose chocolate. When your friend is giving a choice, they choose vanilla. Plus, how you perceive things changes at different times in your life. When you were little, you liked songs like The Wheels on the Bus. Now, you might like songs by Taylor Swift or Pharrell Williams or Selena Gomez better. Perceptions can also change based on your past experiences. What if when you were little, you were bitten by a dog? So now, when you see a dog, you see an animal that could potentially bite you again. You don't see a cute, cuddly animal that's potentially your friend. Now, your perception of dogs could change. If you spend more time with dogs and you're not bitten, then you might begin to like dogs and not feel like they're just animals that want to take a bite out of you. Perceptions can also change based on what you're paying attention to. Let's say that you're sitting in a classroom and the teacher's talking. You should be listening to the teacher, but your friend behind you is whispering something. You can't hear him that well, so you turn your head and you focus your attention on what your friend is saying. Of course, at that particular time, the teacher decides to ask you a question. But you don't know what they were saying because you were trying hard to listen to your friend. Yikes! Perceptions can also change based on your emotional state. Let's say that your family just moved into a new neighborhood and it's your first day at your new school. You may be angry because you liked your old school and your old friends. You're in a bad mood. And even though everyone is being really nice, you decide you don't like any of the new kids. Luckily, your perceptions can change. In fact, the more time that you spend with the new kids, the more you realize they are fun and interesting. Lucky for you, too, that the new kids, who may have perceived you as being not very nice because you were in a bad mood, may also learn that you can be nice. Perceptions can also change based on your expectations. When we expect to see, hear, feel, taste, or smell one thing, then we actually change what we may be see, hear, feel, taste, or smelling. This is where we get sensory illusions, my favorite. Now, let's say if you saw this picture and you had to choose whether the dot was closer to the top or the bottom of the triangle. What would you say? Most likely you'd choose the top or the bottom because my question made you think the dot was closer to the top or the bottom. But in reality, the dot is exactly in the middle of the triangle. Sensory illusions are a lot of fun, but they also tell us that even though our sensory systems may be getting the correct information, our brain has to put everything together, and the information we perceive may be different from the information that we got. So, learning about the world that we live in turns out to be a lot more complicated than we thought. Animals, and humans are animals, we all learn about the world that we live in by getting information from our sensory systems. But humans, unlike other animals, can enhance that information that we get from our sensory systems using technology, and that gives us even more information. Plus, not only is the world around us always changing, but the way that we perceive the information that we're getting about the world around us depends on a lot of other factors, like what we've learned before, what we're paying attention to, our emotional state, and our expectations, to name just a few. And our perceptions are always changing too. Lucky for us, we know that if we keep our brain healthy, that our brain has the ability to assess what's going on in the world around us and to help us choose behaviors that will allow us not only to survive, but to thrive. So thank you all for letting me talk to you today about the world as we know it. I've enjoyed spending time with you today talking about the brain, and I hope that you've had some fun and learned something about your brain. Remember, our sensory systems help us to learn about the world, but humans are more advanced in their thinking than other animals, so we have the ability to enhance our sensory systems to get more information. Based on a lot of different factors, we're then able to perceive that information and make decisions on how to behave. Using your brain to do all this helps your brain to stay healthy, and that is spectacular. So thank you so much for all of your help. Brain health is not just spectacular, it's a lot of fun too. And as always, we want to thank the people at Johns Hopkins University, especially Dr. Ron Daniels, for helping us to help you understand the world as we know it. The world as we know it depends on our sensory systems, but it's not just our sensory systems. It's how our brain then puts that information together and how we perceive the information that our sensory systems are giving us.